So the time is nearly upon us. It's WWE Royal Rumble 2021. It takes place Sunday, January 31st from Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida, inside the WWE ThunderDome. Of course, it's going to be a bit different than usual, considering we're going to have no fans in attendance. We will have, obviously, the virtual fans there as part of the WWE ThunderDome, so it's certainly going to be a different feeling Royal Rumble, but nevertheless, it doesn't dampen my excitement for it. It doesn't make me feel any less excited or invigorated because it's the start of the road to WrestleMania, of course, and frankly, we've got a really good card as well. I think the bill for the Royal Rumble this year, as unique as it has been because of obviously the current circumstances in which we're living in right now, I'm very excited. We've got some stacked matches on the card for tomorrow's show. Now, at the time of recording, we only have 6 matches official for the show. Usually, these Royal Rumble cards, in terms of the matches that are on them, are shorter in terms of matches because you've got those 2-hour-long Rumble matches. But between now and tomorrow, obviously, there's a chance that we do have some more matches added. They're going to have a pre-show, kickoff show. I don't know at the time right now if it's going to be 1 or 2 hours. So we'll have to wait and see on that. If it's going to be 2 hours, you would probably think they're going to add more matches to the kickoff show, at least have some more matches on the card. If not, we're going to go with these matches. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to go through a bit of a preview and a predictions. We won't do the full in-depth previews because we're going to be dropping those videos tomorrow. We're going to be dropping in-depth previews for the likes of the WWE Championship match, the Universal Championship match, and both Rumble matches. We're also going to be doing a watch-along tomorrow night as well when the Royal Rumble is on the air. So the best thing to do right now is to subscribe, click that bottom right-hand corner, click the notification bell. You'll be notified when any of those previews go live tomorrow, and most importantly, you'll be notified when we go live tomorrow night for our Royal Rumble watch-along. But let's get straight into the matches here, and let's start off with the Women's Tag Team Championships, because tomorrow night at the Royal Rumble, Women's Tag Team Champions Asuka and Charlotte Flair will defend against former Women's Tag Team Champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Now, I will be totally honest and transparent here. As far as this match, I mean, it doesn't really do anything for me. I was excited to see Charlotte Flair return at TLC. I think a lot of people were excited to see Charlotte Flair return at TLC. I think the thing that's been a bit frustrating, I would say, is that Asuka and Charlotte Flair are a tag team, but are they really? Are they really? Because in reality, since Charlotte Flair's returned, it's all been about the storyline involving her and her father, Ric Flair, and Lacey Evans. Asuka, on the other hand, she's been involved with Alexa Bliss. She's been having matches with Alexa Bliss. That's been her storyline. That's been her thing for the time being, I guess. And it kind of just feels like, you know, the Women's Tag Team Championships, once again, take a back seat to everything. Tag team wrestling doesn't really matter in WWE. It never has. That's nothing new by any stretch of the imagination there. But it really does feel like that it really doesn't matter at that point. Now, this match could go one of two ways. We obviously could see a scenario where Asuka, Charlotte Flair, they're victorious. They carry on their thing until WrestleMania. Possibly you could see a situation where Asuka and Charlotte Flair face off at WrestleMania for the Raw Women's Championship. Women's Tag Team Champions facing off, right? They did that with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania 21. That was the beginning of a really long feud when it came to them. So they could see a scenario like that. But in the other side of things, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest also if we see a situation where Asuka and Charlotte Flair lose the Women's Tag Team Championships tomorrow night because Charlotte Flair, it's WrestleMania season, so Charlotte Flair's got to be involved in a World Championship picture at WrestleMania, whether it's the Raw Women's Championship, SmackDown Women's Championship, or the NXT Women's Championship. So maybe them winning the Tag Team Championships was just a vehicle for Charlotte Flair's return, and in reality, they want to get the titles back off of them pretty quickly because Charlotte Flair's got to move on to her singles situation. And it might be a situation where, look, they've got the Ric Flair storyline at the moment involving Lacey Evans. Maybe it's a situation where they'll utilize that to get the titles off of Charlotte Flair and Asuka. Nevertheless, I think we're probably going to see Asuka and Charlotte Flair retain. That's my prediction. But in the grand scheme of things, again, I wouldn't be totally surprised if we see a situation where they do drop the Tag Team Championships because, again, tag team wrestling doesn't matter to WWE, so dropping a tag team title, it's not the end of the world. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, they're a decent team. I mean, I prefer, like everyone, I preferred Shayna Baszler's NXT run to the WWE main roster run. 12 months ago, Shayna Baszler was the favourite to win the Women's Royal Rumble. The day of the show, she was planned to win the Women's Royal Rumble, but what happened? Plans changed. Vince McMahon got cold feet, and in reality, they made a last-minute decision. Charlotte Flair wins the Women's Royal Rumble. She goes on to WrestleMania to challenge Rhea Ripley in the end for the NXT Women's Championship. Shayna Baszler does have a match against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, but they go a different route to get there. So Lots of strange things 12 months later, isn't it? But if I'm going to predict a win, if I'm going to stick my neck out on the line here, I'm going to say that the Women's Tag Team Champions retain their titles. But again, wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if we see a situation whereby they have new Women's Tag Team Champions. I think a thing that does frustrate me, though, is that this is a Women's Tag Team Championship match, and these aren't two legitimate tag teams. These are two scenarios where it's two singles wrestlers put together, and suddenly they're a tag team. Suddenly they've got the chemistry and tag team psychology down of a long-time tag team. It's just, that's one of my biggest frustrations with the women's tag team division in WWE right now, is that there aren't any real tag teams. How many real women's tag teams are there? There's the Riot Squad. There was the Iconics. They don't exist now, but is that it? I think that's it. I mean, you could maybe argue Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, since they have been legitimately put together as a tag team. But even them, you know, they're nowhere near the tag team championships. Anytime they get anywhere close to Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, they got the hell kicked out of them. So it's just, that's just the case. That's the situation when it comes to the women's tag team championships in WWE right now. Not that they're worthless, but there's nothing really tag team about them, and I think that's the biggest frustration for me there. Let's move on. Sticking with the women's division, though, we have the SmackDown Women's Championship on the line. Sasha Banks is defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Carmella. Now, this is an interesting one because this is obviously just a progression of the feud that they had in December at the end of 2020 and now into 2021, whereby, look, I enjoyed the match that they had at TLC. I thought it was very well done. I don't know if there's really anything there for Carmella to justify having a rematch. I know the way they've tried to frame it is that Sasha Banks is just really desperate to get her hands on Carmella once again. I never get that. I never understand why the champion would be so willing to go into a championship match. Oh yeah, I'll put my championship on the line against someone. You know, isn't it your prerogative to try and keep it, not to be outwardly try and lose it? I understand the whole, well, I'm the babyface in this situation, so I want to prove all the people wrong. I want to prove that I am truly the best and most defending champion in WWE and in SmackDown Women's Championship history. I get that. They did the angle on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago where Sasha Banks went up against Reginald. I thought actually for what that was, I thought that was actually quite a lot of fun. I thought it was pretty well done in reality. I enjoyed it. I think that Reginald, I think he comes from Cirque du Soleil background, so he's, you know, very, very talented. There's no doubt he's very, very talented in what he does in the ring in terms of his athleticism. There's something about him as well. He just comes across as very creepy. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. But I think that's great. The sort of slimy, what do they call him? The sommelier? I don't know. I'm not, whatever. But nevertheless, I think the Carmella, gimmick change, I think it's pretty much worked for her. I think people were hesitant about it at the start. I think that's because, as fans, pro wrestling fans just, detest change, frankly. But I think that she's done quite well with it. In terms of what will happen tomorrow night at the Rumble, I don't see any situation where Sasha Banks loses the SmackDown Women's Championship. I still want, and this will kind of probably go into the Women's Rumble prediction here, but I really would like to see a scenario where Sasha Banks faces someone like Bianca Belair at WrestleMania. I think that could be really a lot of fun and a really tremendous match, and certainly a match that gets Sasha Banks her big WrestleMania title defense, but also elevates a star like Bianca Belair to the next level. You look at the way that they're booking someone like Bianca Belair recently, it really does feel like the same way that they booked Drew McIntyre before he won the Royal Rumble last year. So I would really be down for a Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair match at WrestleMania. That's certainly a possibility. As far as this match goes, again, their match at TLC was very, very good. I enjoyed their match at TLC. I thought it was one of the better matches on the show. So I have no doubt in my mind that it'll be a really strong matchup. And I think I see Sasha Banks winning. I see Sasha Banks holding the SmackDown Women's Championship until WrestleMania at the very least. I could see her holding it to the end of the year, frankly. There's no reason for Sasha Banks not to be the SmackDown Women's Champion right now. She's arguably on the biggest roll out of any female on the roster right now. She's probably up there with being as over as anyone who's actively competing on the women's roster right now. She's crossing over into the mainstream also with her acting appearances on The Mandalorian, which WWE, for whatever reason, really doesn't like referencing, which I just can't get my head around that. I really can't. You're one of your superstars, one of your champions is on one of the biggest shows, on television right now, and you don't want to reference it. That just... Talk about stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. I mean, I don't understand that whatsoever. But I'm looking forward to this match. Again, I think they had fantastic chemistry at TLC. I think this is one of those matches that this happens sometimes between sort of December and January, whereby after Royal Rumble, you really are on that proverbial road to WrestleMania. That's where you are starting to form, things are starting to come together, you start to see all the seeds that are being planted. Sometimes coming into the Rumble, WWE can be more concerned about what's going to happen coming out of it. So the feud at the Rumble isn't as important, if that makes sense. So for Sasha Banks, what she's going to be doing after the Rumble is far more important to what she's going to be doing at the Rumble, I think. So I think that's why we're going to probably see Sasha Banks win here, and then coming out to the Rumble, we then might see the beginnings of a feud against Bianca Belair or someone like that as we get closer to WrestleMania. So I'm going to go with Sasha Banks to retain the SmackDown Women's Championship here. Now let's move on to our World Championship matches because we have Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Kevin Owens in a last man standing match. Now originally, at one point, this of course was going to be Roman Reigns versus WWE official Adam Pearce for the Universal Championship, which obviously made Twitter, their heads explode. I mean, I criticised it at the time, but I said, in fairness, at the time that I felt that it probably was going to be changed going forward, and that's exactly what we've seen. It has been changed going forward, and we have the rematch once again from TLC, where we have Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Kevin Owens. This match, I've mentioned this a couple of times now, it echoes everything when it comes to Roman Reigns that the Jey Uso feud had with him, that initially, Roman Reigns was meant to face Jey Uso at Clash of Champions. It was meant to be a one-off match. It was meant to be a feud and a match and a program that just reminded everyone, look, Roman Reigns is a big-time heel now. Look what he's doing to his own flesh and blood, to his cousin. He's beating him down. He's telling him to essentially bow down to him. He's saying that he's the tribal chief and he's the head of the table. He's trying to humble him. It was a reminder to everyone in the audience, yeah, Roman Reigns, not only has he aligned himself with the evil Paul Heyman, this guy's a bad guy now. What happened was, though, and it was only scheduled for the Clash of Champions, is that it got really over. It was critically acclaimed on social media. It was critically acclaimed by everyone in WWE. Everyone was raving about it, how great the promos were, how great the storytelling was, how great the match was at Clash of Champions. And they said, look, we can't just stop here. We can get more out of this. And that's why you had the Hell in a Cell match, the Hell in a Cell I Quit match at Hell in a Cell in October. The same thing's happened here when it comes to Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. It was probably meant to be one match that was going to be at TLC. Just TLC is a B-level, C-level pay-per-view. It's at the end of the year. Less people are watching. People are busy with Christmas, the holidays, you name it. And they're not as focused on WWE. It's a low point for ratings. We see that every year. And it was just a point of reference of, okay, who can we put in for Roman Reigns for 1 month that's a credible challenger and we can get good TV and a good match out of? And that's Kevin Owens. He's a reliable performer, excellent promo, excellent in the ring, can slot into any main event position and look completely credible as a World Championship challenger. And once again, like with the Jey Uso storyline, it was very, very, very good. It was critically acclaimed on social media. You talk about a guy like Roman Reigns who's saying that he's providing for his family, he's the head of the table. Who's more of a family man than Kevin Owens? We know he's a genuine family man, and that's come across in this storyline. They said it last night on Smackdown. He's talking about family, and then Roman Reigns starts insulting Kevin Owens' family, his parents, his grandparents, and all that kind of stuff. It's compelling television. And I think once again, it was a situation whereby, look, coming out of TLC, they went, man, that was amazing. We can get more out of this. Roman Reigns is going to be the Universal Champion at WrestleMania. He's going to win tomorrow night at Royal Rumble. I have no doubt about that. But it's also about keeping his character hot. It's also about him having decisive and big moments and big victories to keep the steam up, keep the momentum going into WrestleMania. And that's what tomorrow night will do. By all accounts, all the reports and rumours that we've seen online say that pretty much nothing is confirmed as of yet or set in stone when it comes to the WrestleMania 37 card. The one thing that nearly is, though, is the Roman Reigns match and the Roman Reigns opponent. Now, right now, we don't know who that opponent is. We don't know what that match is. I would suspect, though, considering Roman Reigns hasn't lost since he returned back in August, it's going to be for the Universal Championship. Kevin Owens isn't going to go into WrestleMania as the Universal Champion. Roman Reigns will. So Roman Reigns will win tomorrow night, but once again, like at TLC, it's about having a great match, keeping the momentum on Roman Reigns and making Roman Reigns look strong. And Kevin Owens is very, very good at doing that. The match they had at TLC, that TLC match, everyone knew Roman Reigns was going to win that match. But at some point, you genuinely thought, man, Kevin Owens might win this thing. Kevin Owens might nick this thing. That's what a great job Kevin Owens did. He really made you believe at certain points he might win the Universal Championship. And again, I've said this before, it was a Mankind performance. It reminded me so much of Mick Foley in the sense that he just got beaten down, and took some horrific bumps and some real punishing blows. And every time that happened, you thought, okay, that's it. And he kept going, and he kept doing the slow climb, and he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going. He didn't know when to give up, and eventually it took the interference from the likes of Jey Uso. It took the low blow from Roman Reigns, which I think they might utilise that spot again. Looking at how Roman Reigns has got the majority of his victories over the course of the last 3 or 4 months, that low blow has been pretty constant, whether it's Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, or his own cousin Jey Uso. I think we could see a similar situation at the Royal Rumble too. Of course, this is last man standing as well, so given the other matches on the show, as I mentioned, you've got the 2 Rumble matches which last an hour, but you've also got that WWE Championship match that's going to last about 3 minutes. I think this match is going to go 30, maybe even 40 minutes. I mean, no exaggeration, this could go a long, long time, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing in the slightest. These guys had a similar match at the Royal Rumble in 2017. They have tremendous, tremendous chemistry. And I think considering the chemistry they've had in the past, whether it was TLC or the Royal Rumble 3 years ago, which was that a last man standing match as well? I think that might have been as well. You had Chris Jericho, I think, suspended above the ring in the shark cage because you had the Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens best friends thing at the time. That was for the Universal Championship as well. I'm really excited for this match. I think obviously going into the show, there's matches that people look forward to, the Rumble matches in particular, because they're fantastic. I think people are morbidly curious as well when it comes to the WWE Championship match. But in terms of actual match quality and a match that really could steal the show, as it were, this could be it. This really could be it. So I'm very excited to see Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens. But like I said, there's no doubt in my mind Roman Reigns will win the match. He will retain the Universal Championship, whether it's cleanly or whether it's heel tactics, whether it's Jey Uso, Paul Heyman getting involved. I think Roman Reigns is going to win. One thing we can't rule out, of course, is maybe an Adam Pearce cameo in the match, and Adam Pearce involvement. I think we will get the Roman Reigns Adam Pearce match at some point. I'm glad they didn't do it for this show because I think it's too big of a show to do that match. But when you've got other pay-per-views coming up like a Fastlane, that's a match prior to WrestleMania that you can do a Roman Reigns Adam Pearce match, and it works because it's a B-level show, it's a fun story to tell, and it's a story that fits in the current storyline. It just wouldn't have been a match to do for Sunday's Rumble. Sunday's Rumble is one of the big 4 or 5 events of the year. You don't want to have a WWE official, not even a part-time wrestler, a guy that hasn't performed in, his last match was what, 4 years ago, something like that. No disrespect to Adam Pearce, but you want to have the guys that are there on the roster every single week, and the stars you can help build in those prominent positions. So I think we will still get Roman Reigns versus Adam Pearce. I think that'll probably be at Fastlane in February or something like that. But I wouldn't rule out Adam Pearce also getting involved in this match, and again having a false finish where Adam Pearce maybe looks like he's going to give Kevin Owens the Universal Championship or something like that. Nevertheless, Roman Reigns I'm going to go with to retain the Universal Championship there. Let's move on to the WWE Championship, because of course we've got WWE Champion Drew McIntyre defending the WWE Championship against Hall of Famer Goldberg. Now Goldberg, man, every time this guy comes back, he stirs things up, but not in the right way. Social media have their opinion, obviously, on Goldberg, and I think a lot of the criticism that goes the way of Goldberg is justified. The guy is 55 years old, and some of the stuff he says, the criticism going to Goldberg in like the 90s by people in the industry, whether it was Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, whoever, was that Goldberg was a mark. He believed his own hype too much. He didn't understand business. That's because he was green and his rise was so meteoric that he didn't understand the business side of pro wrestling. And he did believe it was a shoot, and he didn't understand that it was a work, and he was a mark for his own character and all that kind of stuff. But he doesn't help himself in the interviews that he does. I saw the interview or the package he did about him training for this event for the Royal Rumble, and he was saying, nobody could do at the age of 55 what I can do. And it's sort of like, well, what, have 3-minute matches? Spear, jackhammer, become world champion? I'm pretty sure there are quite a few legends at the age of 55 that could do that. I think it's more... Look at people like Ken Shamrock in Impact Wrestling. He's 55 years old and he's having long form matches at a decent level. He's not doing spears and jackhammers and that's it. So Goldberg says that, and sometimes you have to think to yourself, oh, is he just saying this just to rile up the social media crowd? Is he just doing it to rile up the critics or get some attention, get some heat on him, or get people tuning into his match? The answer is no. He believes it. He believes it. He's been criticised as to he bleeds before the matches sometimes, or he comes out and does a promo and he's got blood trickling down his head because he's headbutting the wall or he's headbutting the door. And he was asked about that and he goes, I can't believe people would criticise me for that. I bleed for the fans. No one asked you to. No one asked you to. I bleed for the fans and I have to do it to get in that Goldberg zone. If you do that to get in that Goldberg zone, again, it's a work. It's a work. This is entertainment. And again, you're 55 years old. Like, you don't have to do that. You really don't have to do that. people are ambivalent enough towards him anyway for coming in and having 3-minute matches and winning the World Championship. This could be the third time. And to all of those people that are saying, well, there's no way they will have Goldberg destroy Drew McIntyre. For 12 months, they've had Drew McIntyre pretty much not lose. I mean, he's lost on, 2-3 occasions, but the guy has like a win percentage of like 95% over the course of the last 12 months. He's been the WWE Champion twice. He's the face of Raw. He's the big, new, good-looking babyface. He's a young babyface as well. He's their star at the moment, along with Roman Reigns. There is no way Goldberg would come in and defeat Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship in 3 minutes. And I would love to believe that. I would love to believe that. But we said the exact same thing last year when it came to The Fiend at Super Showdown. There's no way Goldberg's going to come in and beat The Fiend. The Fiend's undefeated. He's the dominant monster heel. He's one of the most unique new creations in the last 5 or 10 years when it comes to WWE. He's such a precious character. He's such a dominating character. Why, if he hasn't lost to anyone and he's dominated a Daniel Bryan, a Finn Balor, whoever, a Seth Rollins, why would Goldberg at the age of 54 come in and beat him on a Saudi pay-per-view in 3 minutes? It just doesn't make any sense. It would destroy The Fiend. They would never do it. They did it, and it took 3 minutes, and it was a spear and a jackhammer, and Goldberg was the new Universal Champion. And The Fiend was very, very, very lucky that he was able to come back with it, because he was going into a program with John Cena, and John Cena had to put him over to get the stench of the Goldberg loss off of him. That could have destroyed him. That absolutely could have destroyed him. And obviously there were rumours at the time about Goldberg lobbying for that. That wasn't the original plan. Goldberg said, I'm the superhero, I need to defeat the villain, I need to defeat the younger villain. And this week Goldberg's coming out saying, oh, it's really difficult to make stars in 2021, and young stars are disrespectful and all this kind of stuff. And he even had the nerve to say that the younger pro wrestlers need to grow a thicker skin. This is Goldberg, the guy that's blocking everyone on social media. He's defending himself all the time because he's saying, well, I bleed for the fans, they don't understand. Nobody could do what I could do at 55 because he's having a go back at the fans again. Goldberg, take your own advice. Metaphorically and literally, grow thicker skin, stop bleeding, and stop responding to the fans' criticism if you don't care as much. It's total hypocrisy. And again, it comes across as a guy that believes his own hype, believes in himself, his own character so much that it's at a detriment. And it's at this point that you kind of feel like, is he just doing this to come back to piss people off? Because it feels like it. It feels like it. And Drew McIntyre referenced it on Monday night, and it sent a shiver down my spine, in the sense that Drew McIntyre said Goldberg's got a streak once again. They found a reason to justify Goldberg getting world title shots. That's very, very, very alarming. Because I've been saying this whole time, when they started off the feud on that Raw Legends night, Goldberg came out and went, oh, you disrespect the Legends, when McIntyre had never done anything of the like. They went, oh, he disrespects the Legends, and McIntyre was like, oh, do I? So I'm going to have a WWE Championship match. It's like, okay. They're they're trying to find a story there that doesn't exist, but okay. And they found one, because Drew McIntyre said it. Drew McIntyre said it on Monday. He said it on Monday. Goldberg's now got a streak of his own once again, because every time Goldberg's come back and he's challenged for a world championship, he's won. Kevin Owens, The Fiend, could Drew McIntyre literally be next? And if you're saying, oh, there's no chance, there is absolutely a chance, because WWE doesn't have anything set in stone, as I mentioned, for WrestleMania, apart from who Roman Reigns is going to be facing. Now, that could be Goldberg, and if that is going to be Goldberg, then maybe you would think Drew McIntyre wins the match. My concern then would be, would WWE realistically want to book a match between Goldberg and Roman Reigns if Drew McIntyre convincingly defeats him at the Royal Rumble in 3 minutes? Because that's how long this match is going to last. Regardless of who wins, the match is going to last 3 minutes. If Goldberg loses in 3 minutes, does that make him this big draw to have a match against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? I don't think so. Why would Roman Reigns even soil himself to have a match against Goldberg at WrestleMania if he lost in 3 minutes to Drew McIntyre? Roman Reigns beat Drew McIntyre at Survivor Series, so why would he have any problem beating Goldberg? So my concern might be WWE might have booked themselves into a corner here and go, oh, we want to do the Goldberg match at WrestleMania. Oh, how we with Roman Reigns, but we can't have him lose in 3 minutes. The match is only going to last 3 minutes. I'm still going to say McIntyre wins the WWE Championship. I'm still going to say he retains, because I don't want to say I can't see him doing it, because I can. I'm sure they wouldn't try and sabotage himself again. Surely not. But again, my concern is they have booked themselves into a corner. And when you book yourself into a corner like this, when it comes to Goldberg and Drew McIntyre, anything can happen, and WWE can get very reactionary when they put themselves in that corner. And maybe they might say, look, we want to have Goldberg versus Reigns at WrestleMania, and it'll be championship versus championship. To me, I don't like that. I really don't like that. I would much rather have Drew McIntyre wins. It puts Drew McIntyre over. Goldberg can do whatever at WrestleMania. Face someone else. But WWE, if they make the same mistake 2 years in a row, then we have cause for concern. But again, another thing that concerns me about it is Goldberg's still under contract to WWE for, I believe, another year or 2 years. And he's got 2 matches on that contract for 2 years or 1 year, however long it is. Are they going to have Goldberg lose again? Because then he's lost to The Undertaker, then he's lost to Brock Lesnar, then he's lost to Braun Strowman, then he's lost to Drew McIntyre. Goldberg's gimmick is that he's this undefeatable monster, even at the age of 55, spear, jackhammer victory. If he's got like 4 losses in the last couple of years, he's not that dominant guy that never loses because he's been losing. Again, they book themselves into a corner. That is a massive, massive, massive concern of mine going into tomorrow. So I'm thinking surely not. I'm thinking that there's no way they would sabotage themselves again, but this is still WWE, this is still WrestleMania season, and as we've seen time and time again over the last few years with Goldberg, you never know. You never know. There might even be plans right now where McIntyre is going to go over and we get to an hour before showtime tomorrow and Goldberg knocks on the door, Vince McMahon goes, I should win because I want to face Roman Reigns or whatever, and then it's like, anything is possible. I'm going to go with McIntyre to retain, but I'm worried. As they would say in Star Wars, I have a bad feeling about this. So let's move on to the Rumble matches themselves. Let's start off with the Women's Royal Rumble match. Now, obviously, you can see some of the people that have been announced or declared. I declare myself for the Rumble. Apparently, that's all that it takes. But some of the people that have been announced for the Rumble so far, we've got Nia Jax from Raw, Charlotte Flair from Raw, Bianca Belair and Bayley from SmackDown, Mandy Rose, Dana Brooke, Peyton Royce, Alexa Bliss, Shayna Baszler from Raw, and then from SmackDown also announced you have Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, Tamina, and Natalya. So those are the names that have been announced so far. Obviously, we're probably going to have a lot of surprises there. Who will those surprises be? Well, that's going to be interesting. When it comes to surprises for the Royal Rumble this year, it's a little bit different, isn't it? Because obviously we are living in the current pandemic time, so certain people might not want to travel to the show. Certain people might not be able to travel to the show. There might be some people that don't feel comfortable performing right now. So I don't know if we're going to see a situation where we're going to have less surprises than we usually would have because there's less available. Certainly when it comes to legends, there might be less legends available. I think some names that some people have seen thrown around, obviously Eva Marie is one of them. She is actually, I think, under contract to WWE. She's been spotted at Tropicana Field. She's been spotted at the Performance Center. Reports of her signing with the WWE go back as far as November, December, and it's just been a case of waiting for the right time to bring her in. I thought originally they were going to pair up with Angel Garza. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. Certainly now would be a good time to bring her back. What better way to reintroduce her than in the Rumble match, and then going forward she could be a part of Raw and SmackDown or something like that. So we could see Eva Marie. Other names that I've seen discussed include the likes of Melina. Obviously Melina, there was reports that she had signed a contract last year. I think she was part of Raw Legends Night as well, so maybe that's a possibility. Other names, the likes of Molly Holly, maybe Michelle McCool. I know she was having problems with COVID recently, so I don't know if that's likely. You could also have the likes of Trish Stratus also, I suppose, in there as well. Lita. I mean, there are legends that they could bring in. Right now, if I had to pick, I'd probably say people like Eva Marie and think Melina are probably the most likely. Beth Phoenix, of course, she is a commentator for NXT. She was in it last year. She's been in it a couple of times at this point. Given that she's under the WWE umbrella, I think that's a possibility absolutely as well. So obviously there are names. There certainly are names. I still think one day get a Stephanie McMahon in there. People would hate it. People would absolutely hate it. But that would be a lot of fun. As far as who's going to win it, look, this one's tough. This one is tough. I think my pick would, for me, it's between 3 people. It's between Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, and Charlotte Flair. Now, Charlotte Flair, I don't think will win it purely because she won it last year. It wouldn't shock me if they went with that again. I just think social media would explode. And potentially this could be after Goldberg versus Drew McIntyre. So could you imagine the meltdown? So I don't think Charlotte Flair will win it, although I still do think Charlotte Flair will be involved in one title picture in WrestleMania, regardless of what that is and who that's against. So that leaves Alexa Bliss and Bianca Belair. It's a coin toss. It really is a coin toss for me. If this is the Alexa Bliss, the darker version of Alexa Bliss, then realistically, she should win because she should be dominating people. She is the Fiendess. And the Fiendess doesn't sell for anyone. The Fiendess doesn't register anyone else's offense. So it would make total sense for Alexa Bliss to win that Rumble match. And then who would she face off against? Would she face off against the Raw Women's Champion? I could see maybe that even being Charlotte Flair at that point. Then you have Charlotte Flair versus Alexa Bliss at WrestleMania for the Raw Women's Championship. I mean, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. I don't know how happy people would be about that. But Alexa Bliss, frankly, has been arguably the best performer on Raw recently, along with Randy Orton and The Fiend. That whole storyline on Monday Night Raw is the best thing going in terms of that brand right now, which is a low bar, I'll give you that, but certainly is very, very interesting and exciting. So that's something to consider. I think potentially we could see a situation where maybe a Randy Orton gets involved there. And maybe Randy Orton, I mean, this is a person who RKO'd Alexa Bliss on Monday Night Raw this past week. This is a situation where Alexa Bliss has blown a fireball into the face of Randy Orton. So maybe if the Women's Rumble takes place earlier on in the show, we could see Randy Orton get involved and eliminate Alexa Bliss, which then leads into the Men's Rumble later on in the show, where we could see an angle involving The Fiend and Randy Orton or something like that, and Alexa Bliss getting involved. So I'm going to go with Bianca Belair to win. As I mentioned earlier on when discussing the Smackdown Women's Championship, I would really like to see a Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks match at WrestleMania. I think that would be a money matchup, a really strong matchup too. I think Bianca Belair, you have to look at the way she's being booked on SmackDown right now as well. You saw her last night. She defeated Bayley clean in the middle of the ring. The way they're booking her is this likable top babyface on that brand. Again, it reminds me of how they were booking Drew McIntyre going into the Rumble last year. Just incredibly, incredibly strong, defeating everyone. Bianca Belair, I've said it several times here on the channel. I said it when she was in NXT. I always felt that she would have her best success on Raw or SmackDown as opposed to NXT. She never won the NXT Women's Championship, had a couple of NXT Women's Championship matches, but I just felt her mainstream appeal was far more suited to Raw or SmackDown. She is one of the exceptions to the rule that less success in NXT, but huge success on the main roster, and I think that's going to be the case with Bianca Belair. We've seen the documentary about her on the WWE Network happen as well now recently, and we've got to see that side of her. She's become even more sympathetic, even more relatable right now, so I think it's Belair's to lose, I really do. Now, I know people are going to talk about, as mentioned, other surprises before we go on to the Men's Rumble. Becky Lynch, I don't see it. I really don't see it because of physics. I mean, she gave birth something like 8 weeks ago. It might even be less than that, 6-8 weeks ago. She gave birth in December. I would be floored. I would be floored if Becky Lynch, was it November? I don't know, but it wasn't long ago. I would be floored if 6-8 weeks after giving birth, Becky Lynch is in the Royal Rumble match. Now, obviously, she was practically training throughout her pregnancy. I know people were saying she looks great at the moment. It would be miraculous beyond a degree. I mean, it would rival a John Cena, and I know that carrot alone gives WWE going, oh, but imagine she could pull it off. If she could pull it off and she could prove that she is the man and the mom and all that kind of stuff, how amazing would that be? I agree, I just don't see it, and I think people that are expecting her to show up tomorrow don't understand the rules of physics. Not to say that it's impossible, but I just really can't see it. Really can't see it. Do not get your hopes up thinking she's going to show up because I don't see it. Ronda Rousey, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. I know she's been trolling people on Twitter saying that Ronda Rousey is one of the favourites, going, oh, I can't believe that. Well, this is the same Ronda Rousey that said she was in Colombia when she was had her WWE debut. She was actually filming, but she came back for the Rumble debut. That was 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point, which is madness to think about. Nevertheless, Ronda Rousey, we know her contract does expire in April, and I don't think she signed a new one as of yet. She signed a 3-year full-time deal, and she did a year. And I think WWE, regardless, is probably going to have discussions with her and say, look, can you at least come back for one event? Can you at least come back for 3 months? You're not going to be doing the travel. That's been Rousey's biggest complaint is, oh, the travel was brutal and all that kind of stuff. Well, in reality, the travel is non-existent now because you just have to be in Florida for Mondays or Tuesdays and occasionally a Sunday. So if that's the case, then maybe it's a lot more palatable for Ronda Rousey right now, and maybe if her contract is going to expire in April after WrestleMania, maybe WWE and Rousey say, look, we appreciate you did the full year. Can you do now in WrestleMania? You're still under contract, blah, blah, blah. So it's not out of the realm of possibility in the slightest that Ronda Rousey appears tomorrow. I just don't know if I can see it at this point. The only thing I can say, though, is that I can't imagine WWE paying all of that money and not trying to get Ronda Rousey to perform. So maybe she doesn't appear at the Rumble. It doesn't mean that she won't appear at WrestleMania. I think there might have been plans for her to appear at Mania last year, but then the pandemic happened and all that kind of stuff. Again, we don't know Rousey's feelings when it comes to performing in the pandemic anyway, so that's something to consider too. But I wouldn't rule out a Ronda Rousey appearance. But regardless, I'm going to go with Bianca Belair to win the Women's Royal Rumble. And finally, let's talk about the Men's Royal Rumble match. So we have lots of of names declared already for this Rumble. We have SmackDown's Daniel Bryan. We have the United States Champion Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, and Randy Orton from Raw. We have SmackDown's Otis, Raw's Mr. Money in the Bank, The Miz, SmackDown's Jey Uso and Cesaro, Raw's Jeff Hardy, SmackDown's Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, Shinsuke Nakamura, and the Intercontinental Champion Big E. We also have Monday Night Raw's John Morrison, Sheamus, Mustafa Ali, and WWE Hall of Famer, the Rated R Superstar Edge, is making his in-ring return during the Royal Rumble match. We have King Corbin from SmackDown, Rey Mysterio from SmackDown, Dominic Mysterio from SmackDown, and the returning Braun Strowman as well from Monday Night Raw, as he made his return to SmackDown last night. This one is going to be certainly interesting. I've seen a lot of people thinking Daniel Bryan is going to win this one. I know he opened SmackDown last night. I know on SmackDown he spoke about never winning the Rumble before, wanting to return to WrestleMania, wanting to return to that grand stage and win the World Championship. I know he's one of the favourites. I just don't know if I can see it. I really just don't know if I see it, because I think at this point in his career, Daniel Bryan's been putting over everyone on SmackDown, whether it's Jey Uso or whoever. He's been putting over a lot of people, and it just doesn't feel like he would win the Rumble. I might be wrong there, but I just can't see that. Braun Strowman, it's a possibility. The guy came back, looked in unbelievable shape. He could get a monster push going into WrestleMania. Again, it would be very surprising, especially considering the way he's been booked over the course of his career. Not an impossibility, though. Obviously, Randy Orton is in there. I don't think he will win. I think the Randy Orton element of it will lead to a return of The Fiend. I think The Fiend will return after he was burnt to a crisp at TLC back in December. I think he'll return and have his moment with Randy Orton, but I think they're going to lead to that match at WrestleMania, which opens up the possibility, of course, for the Rated R Superstar Edge. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb. This one might be wrong. I'm going to go with Edge to win it. Edge talked about winning the WWE Championship or the World Championship 10 years ago. Of course, he had to retire after WrestleMania. He retained the World Championship. Coming out of WrestleMania after retaining the World Championship, 7 days later, he had to relinquish it and he had to retire because of the neck issues. 10 years later, can he win the Rumble, go on to WrestleMania, compete for the WWE Championship, win what he never lost in the first place 10 years later? That is an incredible story. And it really felt like Monday Night on Raw. The suddenness of it, the surprise of it, kind of felt like that's what they'd settled on. So I'm going to say Edge wins it, and he goes on to WrestleMania to challenge Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship, but I think Drew McIntyre would win that match. Nothing set in stone. As I've said several times about WrestleMania, nothing is set in stone, so I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if we didn't have that situation when it comes to the Rumble. I'm going to go with Edge. I don't think Edge winning it is clear-cut or anything like that. It could be a Daniel Bryan. It could be a Braun Strowman. I think Edge makes a lot of sense. I like the story of Edge winning it 10 years later. People will say, well, you don't like other part-timers coming back, blah, blah, blah. The story for Edge, though, is so great. That story is, I mean, once in a lifetime being able to tell that, right? A guy who had to retire because of neck injuries, comes back last year, surprise entrant at the Rumble, loses, then gets injured on his comeback. A year later, he's once again back at the Rumble. 10 years after he retired, he then wins the Rumble match, challenges for the World Championship at WrestleMania. Last time he performed in front of fans at a WrestleMania, it was for a World Championship, which he held, he retained, then he had to retire 7 days later. I mean, that is an incredible story that you just won't be able to tell that often in terms of WWE storytelling. So I think that makes the most sense, and I think that's the best story to tell. I think, as I mentioned then, that would mean he goes on to WrestleMania. Who does he face? It's either going to be Drew McIntyre or Roman Reigns. Either match is big. Either match is big. I think if he faces, regardless who he faces, I think the champion would win there. But both stories are a real interesting story there. As far as surprise entrants here, I think there are some names like Wade Barrett have been rumoured. Brock Lesnar, of course, is another one. Lesnar, as far as I'm aware, hasn't signed a contract with WWE as of yet, so we don't know. The people are saying John Cena. He's currently out in Canada filming the Peacemaker TV series. There's issues traveling in from Canada in terms of having to quarantine, a negative COVID test. I think the difficulties make that unlikely, although Cena apparently is pretty much a lock for WrestleMania. We just don't know who he's going to be facing off against. Lesnar's an interesting one. A lot of people have been saying that the Money in the Bank scenario that Lesnar had a few years ago, where he comes in at the last minute and wins it, is something that could happen with Brock Lesnar. I agree, it's a possibility. I just don't know if it's likely as of yet. So I'm going to go with Edge to win the Rumble, but frankly, this one is wide open, as is the whole card right now. But of course, as always, This is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts and predictions for the Royal Rumble match tomorrow night on pay-per-view? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Be sure to click that notification bell, click the subscribe button. You'll be notified when we upload our match previews tomorrow, and also you'll be notified when we go live for the watch along tomorrow night. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.